One of the best portable consoles ever created is still relevant today, the PS Vita. That's right, the PS Vita. This thing is successful to me. Yeah, I own a 3DS. Guess where it sits? Actually, please tell me because I forgot where it sits. Oh wait, there it is, under my PS4 remote and a rag. So there, PS Vita is awesome to me, damn it. But who do I have to thank for that? None other than the Homebrew community. That's right. The same group that potentially brought down the PSP's reputation and made the Vita a struggle to develop for, is also who saved the Vita, in my opinion. But what's that, you say? PS Vita is a dead console that no one has cared about for years? Tell that to Sony after they tried to shut down the Vita store and the community forced them to keep the store online. Vita is one of the best places to get new indie titles that are easy and fun to play for very competitive prices. In this video, I want to take you back to the reason why I think the Vita was and is an amazing console to own, and also to show you that when Sony made the console more difficult, the Homebrew community stepped in and gave life to the console for me, making it eternally relevant. So let's go back to Sony's first portable console, the PSP. Yeah, I owned the system. Actually, I owned a couple of versions of the system, and I was buying games off UMD when it first released, even a couple of movies. But one of the things that made it intriguing to own was the fact that it was a system that you could download games onto your memory card from the PlayStation Store. This brought it to another level. This meant faster load times and multiple games on one card. Convenience was awesome. The PSP was great because the PSP itself was a chance to actually have 3D graphics in a portable system, and the fact that when you went from the UMDs to the actual memory card units themselves, it let you play a bunch of games on the system and take it where you wanted to go. And you can pretty much play any PlayStation game on the PSP itself. Really meant console quality on the go, so PlayStation Portable was revolutionary. One of the things about the PSP memory card is that you can also plug it into an adapter and connect it to a PC. This gave an opening for Homebrew to really take off, and unfortunately, piracy. Sony and the Homebrew community were constantly one-upping each other on firmware updates, until the ultimate Homebrew hack was discovered. You see, on the first two models of Sony's PSP, the battery was removable. Apparently, a hack was discovered that let you boot the PSP from a special battery boot method, which would let you install hacked firmware from any Sony firmware. This was devastating for the PSP's anti-piracy. What this basically meant is that you would be able to launch any software or illegally downloaded games into the PSP, and it would run without an issue. And because the memory card was very easy to just connect to any computer, it made it super easy to just load the files you needed to hack the system and games you wanted. And just go. Despite all of that, the PSP was successful, but Sony wanted to ensure that their follow-up, the PS Vita, didn't have the same issue. Sony was trying to help win developers' confidence in the portable system, ensuring them that their software wouldn't be pirated, with a custom memory card for the PS Vita, and the inability to remove the battery from the console. This one change, however, would ultimately lead to the PS Vita's failure. What do I mean? Consider the following. The PS Vita launched the Wi-Fi version of the console for $249. That's a large price for a new portable console, but still manageable. The real kicker was that in order to save your progress in games that were already pretty expensive at $30 and up, you had to save your progress on their proprietary cards that were compatible only with the PlayStation Vita. One would think, whatever, memory is memory, right? So Sony had to design a custom Vita card for the PlayStation Vita, and it's really because the PSP made it easier for those that wanted to homebrew their system. They can just hack it and do whatever they wanted to do with it very easily and just pop it right back into the PSP. So the Vita itself was like, we're not designing any reader for the PC. You're going to have to use our proprietary software, our content manager, in order to transfer the files that we want you to transfer and nothing else. I think they got a little confident with that, and unfortunately it probably affected the pricing because no one else was developing those type of cards but Sony. Take one gander of what the price of a Sony Vita memory card is today, let alone back then. On Amazon, a 16GB card is over $100. In contrast, a pack of 10 16GB micro SD cards is less than $40. Now this didn't dissuade me from buying a Vita, nor a memory card, because I was really excited for the console. So yes, I bought a 32GB card to start off with. And yep, that card is over $200 today. Rip off? Yeah, but I was excited. Now we all know that the Vita wasn't exactly supported throughout the years, but I loved it. Not only for its ability to play great games and a plethora of indie titles, but also thanks to the remote play feature that let me play PS4 games from anywhere that had a Wi-Fi connection. This was awesome. This was the best system. Heck, to have even more games available to me, I bit the bullet and bought a 64GB card. I don't even remember how much I paid for it, but it was a lot. I wanted a second card not only for the ability to add more games to a card, but also because I purchased a PS TV, which was like a Vita that you hook up to a television. Don't get me started on the PS TV. Sony killed that system right out of the gate too by not letting you play many Vita games on the damn thing. Made no sense. PS Vita and PS TV in fact had a lot of games that I was interested in. The Uncharted series, it had its own game. Marvel vs. Capcom 3, Ultimate Marvel vs. Capcom 3. You just had titles that really you either couldn't get anywhere else, or if you could, it was the only way you can actually take those games and play them elsewhere and take them with you, which is what I was excited about. And then having purchased those games, the ability to actually play them on my television when I wanted to, when the PS TV was out, was pretty exciting. Though the PS TV had its limits with some games. Some games did actually work, so it was pretty cool to have a console that not only can you take everywhere, but one that you can play on your TV when you were home. And that was way before Nintendo came up with that concept. So I happily played my Vita for many years despite Sony's screw-ups. But then, Sony had one more screw-up for its portable fans planned. You see, they were just about tired of supporting the PS Vita and PS3 stores, so they decided to shut them down in the summer of 2021. Now the backlash was immense, and Sony had to walk back that statement and reverse their decision. But this still had me panic. They're just delaying the inevitable. I've got to buy a bigger card. But as I checked online and was reminded of the large price, I figured, hey, I've got two cards, 32 and 64 gigabytes. Let me just get my favorites on those cards so I could just keep them. I then popped in my 64 gigabyte card and boom, failure. I paid so much money for this card and it failed. Now really what turned me into the Homebrew firmware was memory cards were limited, the frustration of wanting to play all these games, and then of course the memory card prices, which were ridiculous for a console that Sony wasn't supporting anymore, and me wanting to play all these games because eventually the store is going to shut down for PS Vita. And I just wanted to have them downloaded before it goes away. Now I know that Sony said that they would still let you download these games. Now the download method of the games that you own is already frustrating because you got to scroll down the list, you download the game you want, but then you can't filter out your PlayStation 3 downloads. You have to scroll through them and just to see what you've downloaded on the Vita, and it's by when you purchased it. And it's just way too cumbersome to get each game, so even that is not fun. I'd rather just have the games that I want on my system and that's it. And to be limited to a 64 gigabyte card that costs well over $200 to $300 is just ridiculous. That's why Homebrew hacking and that SD to Vita solution was the best thing. Now, I had heard for a long time that the homebrew community had figured out a way to hack the Vita, but now I needed their help. So with a quick search, there was my answer. A micro SD to PS Vita adapter. For $6? What the? In order to work, it would require Homebrew on the Vita, which was not hard at all for me to install after my good experience doing the same to my PSP. But this time was way different. I felt like I was forced into doing this by Sony to play games that I legally bought from them. So it seems that not only did the homebrew community kind of screw the PSP, but the same community is also partially responsible for extending the life of the Vita. Yeah, you can play homebrew games and emulate different consoles on it, but I just simply wanted to play the Vita games I owned on my Vita. So the card arrives in the mail, and I already had some experience with an SD card hack on my PlayStation TV, which worked great using an SD card. But this adapter would let me super enlarge the size of memory on my Vita. So I pop in a 256 gig micro SD card into the converter, and then boom, and no go. Well, you see, the converter won't simply work without a few extra steps, so I put on my super hacker nerd costume, and I was ready to get it set up. Now I won't bore you with the steps, but I'll leave a link in the description of what you want to know regarding what it takes to set it up. But after it was done, holy moly, I installed all my games. And now my PS Vita can live on. Even if the network goes down, I've got my games. After accomplishing that software hack and the firmware hack, now I really feel like I don't have to worry about downloading or re-downloading different games just to take with me. I could just have them all with me at all times. And it's awesome the fact that I don't have to worry about those limits. I don't have to worry about switching out cards or anything. It's like the homebrew community gave new life to it. And to be able to play all those games frequently and flawlessly between the PS TV and the PS Vita, thanks to the application that whitelists all games on your PS TV so that you can pretty much play them. It's honestly the way the Vita should have been from the beginning, and the PS TV from the beginning, because now I can play the games that I purchased as much as I want on the systems that I want. And I honestly think that the console would have been a lot more successful had they opened that up to everyone else. And this is why I would always be grateful and thankful to the homebrew community, because they are really not just those that want to let you play, ROMs for free that you download. No, this community actually makes the consoles that you have better. And if Sony figured that out and realized and listened to their audience on what they should do rather than come up with a few strategies that weren't working and then unfortunately let a console die, they might have been a little bit more profitable than they actually ended up being with the PS TV and the PS Vita. That's just my opinion. So yeah, Vita is one of my favorite consoles. Do you guys own a Vita? If so, do you still play it? Why or why not? Let me know, and as always, you can make my day if you subscribe today. This is Magnus, and I'm out. Leave a like too. See you later.